Welcome back, and Dr. Lanre Adebayo joins us now. He's the Director General of People's Democratic Institute. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
We're looking at our preparations for these elections. We're a few more days to that big day, and it looks as though all of those activities have just kicked off, gone up one notch as we head towards that. But in terms of our preparations, the kinds of things that we put in place, what's your assessment?
I think to a large extent, I would say we're ready for the election. If you look at the various institutions that are involved in the election process, INEC, the political parties, the security agencies, you could observe that there has been a high level of preparations in terms of putting all the key things in places. For example, INEC, for example, has done a lot in terms of educating voters or where to locate their PVCs. And you could also see a lot of activities around the RECs and the officers. And of course, IG has been on air, also, mobilizing its men and officers to go to the field. And the political parties are busy training polling agents, party agents, and as well as the voters are also
Political parties?
Yeah. I mean, they're also mobilizing, they're training their party agents and polling agents. And I think the media too has been very involved, both in terms of heightening the level of awareness as well as bringing to the fore some of the issues of, for example, PVCs, the role of the various institutions. I think the media really has done well in terms of bringing into account some of the institutions.
You know, there's also a thing that if the political parties had embarked on voter education earlier than they did, if some of them did, you may not have had cases of uncollected permanent voter cards as much as we do have them today.
Well, I think the problem with PVCs is really, it's not so much of lack of awareness, but so much the issue of location of PVCs. A lot of people registered, but they couldn't really find out where to collect the PVCs. They go to the places where they registered and couldn't. So I think it's more of INEC's logistics problem rather than political parties not doing their work. I think there's been a lot of voter education, really, even though it came too late. Again, that also says something about the way we plan for elections. Voter education is not supposed to be something you do only during elections. It's supposed to be a sustained activity as part of getting people involved, getting people to participate in the process. So in a way, we're learning, because this is a young democracy. Some of these issues are also helping us to plan for future elections. What I want to see from this election are lessons that we could learn to help in terms of strengthening our democracy. For example, we need to do a lot more of robust civic education in our school system at the community level, involving organizations, as well as ensuring that voter education is not done just by an institution. It's supposed to be a massive thing involving the national orientation agencies, non-state sector, and if it is sustained over time, you're likely to get a lot more involvement of people, and the issues of not getting the PVCs early enough will have been resolved.
You know, going back to voter education, which we highlighted yesterday almost all through the program, talking about the importance and how much of effort political parties have put in that direction. One wonders how we're able to get to this level of awareness, knowing full well that we haven't actually done that with so many other agencies. Would you say that the social media, even though sometimes you got to have a mix of them all, the bad, the good, and even the untrue, right in it, has helped give Nigerians some form of awareness leading up to this particular election?
The social media have done quite a lot of work, but of course they have a particular audience. And that audience is a youthful audience, educated youthful audience. But you also have a lot of our people in rural areas, millions in the majority, who don't have access to social media. And they are aware, as our young ones would. And you also discover that, you see, in our country, a lot of the young ones really help in terms of driving the focus and the preferences of the other ones. When you're in school, you're likely to influence your parents more than any politician could. So in effect, I think it's a combination of both the social media, the mainstream media, as well as political parties.
So the rural areas, what form of education or tool to educate them should we employ if we have to look in that direction, knowing full well that these are also Nigerians, and they have rights to also vote and right to so many of these amenities.
For me, see, I believe that when you talk in terms of rural areas, you need to deploy the interpersonal channel. The interpersonal channel has been discovered to be the most effective when it comes to change of attitude. But of course, the radio and television, what I would describe as secondary reinforcing channels, they help in terms of reminding those who have been engaged at the interpersonal level as to what they could do to improve on the information they've gotten. So in a way, you need a combination of both the interpersonal channels as well as the radio, excuse me, radio and television to help help in terms of educating these mass of our people in rural areas.
Now, some people will say it's much easier because there you have the town criers who still do a good job in that area. But I was looking at the figures yesterday released by INEC in terms of the distribution of PVCs. And I don't know if you saw those figures, but did they give you any inkling? Because the areas where you think are most sophisticated, for instance, the Southwest, has about the lowest PVC collection.
Well, there has been arguments as to why that has happened. Well, we shouldn't go to that at this point. But I think, to a large extent, what you find in the Southwest could be a combination of many things. It's highly urbanized. People registered in places with a large number of potential voters. And therefore, at the level of distribution, it becomes a challenge, for example, to keep everything in one place, and therefore they are deployed to different stations. So people now begin to look for the PVCs. In addition to that, people in the Southwest are highly engaged. A lot of people don't have the time to spare to begin to look for PVCs.
That's where I was coming to. Do you think that government could have done a lot more? In the Southwest states, for instance, you found that people, not just in the Southwest states, in some other states as well, there were public holidays declared, but that only affected, say, for instance, government workers who worked in the state government institutions, and not necessarily private institutions workers, where you also have a large concentration of workers in the private sector. Do you think there's a lot more that government could have done, especially at the federal level, to encourage people to collect their voter cards?
I think it's more of an INEC issue, really, for me. I think we need to deploy a more efficient means of distributing some of these things, because INEC is supposed to be independent. When government begins to get involved, it raises other issues as to what the intention will be. I think, to a large extent, we need to do, to kind of strengthen the capacity of INEC to do these logistical problems, to solve some of these problems. And that is why I've always canvassed that, look, INEC should focus on planning, to improving its capacity to conduct elections. There are other ancillary activities like voter education, which ought to be given to agencies like the National Orientation Agency, non-state sectors, so they can concentrate on research and on improving the capacity to do some of these things. Because, again, when election comes in, we're going to also have some of these issues of distribution of materials. And these are key part of the election process. And so for me, I think we need to learn from these elections. And immediately after the election, we need to sit down and begin to look at where we had done very well, where we had failed, and begin to find ways of solving our problems. I think INEC ought to be more inclusive the way they do their things.